In this video, we are going to solve the 2024 Slot 1 VARC paper. So what we are going to do today is we are going to solve the paper together. And what I'll do is we'll go through the passages together. Then I'll read the question. What I want you to do is pause the video over there. First, try to guess what the answer for this question might be, and then go ahead and see what the answer actually is and what the reasoning behind that is. So that way you'll also be solving the question paper on your own once, and you'll also be going to know what the answers actually are. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first question is a passage accompanied by four other questions. So let's read the passage together. So, landing in Australia, the British colonists weren't much impressed with the small-bodied, slender-snouted marsupials called bandicoots. So, slender means thin, slender-snouted means thin-nosed. Marsupials is a type of animal. It's very similar to rats called bandicoots. So, bandicoots is the name that they are called. Their muzzle, again, their nose, which is a much too long, gives them an air exceedingly stupid. So this sentence means that their nose, which is very long, gives them a very stupid look. One naturalist noted in 1905. They nicknamed one type the zebra rat because of its back striped rump. Rump also means the back of the animal. So black striped back or black striped rump. Silly looking or not, though, the zebra rat, the smallest bandicoot, more commonly known today at the west as the western barred bandicoot, exhibited a genius for survival in the harsh outback, where its ancestors had persisted for some 26 million years. Its births were triggered by rainfall in the bone-dry desert. So it means the animal gave birth to its babies in the rainfall. It carried its breath mint sized babies in the backward facing pouch so mothers could forage for food and dig shallow camouflaged shelters. Still, the adaptations did not prepare the western bad bandicoot for the colonial era transformation of its ecosystem, particularly the onslaught of British imported animals. From cattle and rabbits that damaged delicate desert vegetation to ravenous house cats that soon developed a taste for bandicoots. Several of the dozen odd bandicoot species were extinct, and by the 1940s, the western barred bandicoot, whose original range stretched across much of the continent, persisted only on two predator-free islands in Shark Bay of, of Australia's western coast. So, after the British colonists brought their animals like the cats and the cattle and the rabbits, they ate the vegetation over there, and the cats directly also hunted the bandicoots. And because of that, before the bandicoots used to be found across all of the continent, are now only there on two islands in Shark Bay, which is off of Australia's western coast. Our isolated fauna had simply not been exposed to these predators, says Ricky Pedler, an ecologist with the Wild Deserts Conservation Program. Now, Wild Deserts is a using descendants of those few thousand island survivors called Shark Bay Bandicoots in a new effort to seed a mainland bandicoot revival. They have imported 20 bandicoots to preserve on the edge of the Strzelecki Desert in the remote interior of the New South Wales. So now this organization, the Wild Deserts, is trying to revive the bandicoots by bringing the bandicoots that were left on those islands back to the mainland in these places, the Strzelecki Desert and the New South Wales. The sanctuary is a challenging place, desolate much of the year, with one of the world's most mercurial rainfall patterns, relentless droughts followed by sudden drenching floods. So, mercurial is an adjective that we use to describe something that changes very rapidly. So, mercurial rainfall patterns means the rainfalls over there change very rapidly. The imported bandicoots occupy two fenced exclosures. They are not using the word enclosure, instead, they are using the word exclosures because these are the type of areas where they try to keep some type of species of animals away. So, Over in these exclosures, they clear the invasive rabbits and the feral cats. So they have two areas where they do not allow the rabbits and the cats to come, where they are keeping the bandicoots. A third fenced area contains the program's wild training zone, where the other two rare marsupials, bilbuls, a larger type of bandicoot, and mulgaras, a somewhat fearsome fuzzball known for sucking the brains out of prey, currently share terrain with controlled number of cats, learning to evade them. It's unclear whether the shark bay bandicoots, which are perhaps even more predator naive than their now extinct mainland bandicoot kin, will be able to make that kind of breakthrough. For now, though, a recent surge of rainfall has led to a bandicoot joey boom, raising the wild desert population to about 100, with other centuries adding to that number. There are also signs of rebirth in the landscape itself. With their constant digging, the bandicoots trap moisture and allow for seed germination so the cattle damaged desert can restore itself. They have a new nickname, a flattering one this time. We call them ecosystem engineers, Pedler says. Coming to the four questions, which of the following statements provides a gist of the passage? So there are four statements, and one of them provides the gist of the whole passage that we read just now. So the onslaught of animals such as cattle, rabbits, and house cats brought in by British led to the extinction of the western barred bandicoot. So this is very close, but if you see it says the extinction, but they did not go extinct, right? They were surviving on the island, the two islands of Shark Bay. So marsupials are going extinct due to the colonial era transformation of the ecosystem, which also destroyed natural vegetation. So this is also a close candidate for the answer. But let's also read the other options. A type of bandicoots was nearly wiped out by an invasive species, but rescuers now pin hopes on a remnant island population. So even though the option B also describes what the passage is saying, and option C also describes what the passage is about, the option B does not mention that the rescuers are now trying to repopulate the populations of the bandicoots, but it is mentioned in option C. So that is a much closer candidate for the answer. The negligent attitude of British colonists towards bandicoots, evidenced by the names given to them, led to their annihilation. So again, not wrong, but only covers a little bit of the portion of the paragraph that we read. So option C is the correct option, since it gives a proper gist of what we just read. So there was a type of bandicoot which was nearly wiped out, so not completely wiped out. In the first option, it says it went extinct, so only nearly wiped out by the invasive species, but now rescuers are trying to repopulate them. Question 2. So over here, option C is the answer. The text uses the word exclosures because wild deserts have adopted a measure of restoring cattle damaged deserts, nope, excluding animals to make islands predator free, barring the entry of invasive species, riding the main desert of feral cats and large bilbies. So again, all the three options are very close. These options are specifically designed to confuse you. But if you look at option B, it says that excluding animals to make the islands predator free. So we are not making the islands predator free. And specifically, we are not trying to eliminate all the predators, right? We want the natural predators of bandicoots to be still there, which were there before the invasive species came. We are only trying to bar the entry of the invasive species like the rabbits and the cats that were brought by the British colonists. And ridding the main desert of feral cats and large, so this is very specific to cats, and exclosure is a general term. So option C again is the answer. Question 3. Which one of the following options does not represent the characteristics of the Western barred bandicoot? So from all of these, one of the options does not represent how the bandicoots look. So shallow diggers having an elongated muzzle, smallest black-striped marsupials that use camouflage and dig. So they are shallow diggers and do have an elongated muzzle, long, thin nose, black striped pouch for joeys. So this is also correct. Look for a rat. Look of a rat with a baby pouch and a slender snout. So this is also correct. So even the option B would seem correct to some people, but the thing is, it uses the word smallest, but nowhere in the text that we found that bandicoots are the smallest of the marsupials, right? They are not the smallest marsupials. That and they do not use camouflage. They just dig burrows which are camouflaged, but they do not specifically use camouflage as an animal. Last question. According to the test, the western barred bandicoots now have flattering name because they have aided in altering an arid environment, have grown fivefold in terms of population, no. Led to a surge and increase of rainfall, no. Led to a revival in presence of the species. So no, so yeah, option A. Because the nickname that they got was, we call them ecosystem engineers because they dig some pouches here and there and they are restoring the cattle damaged desert, right? So they are aiding in the altering of an arid environment. Arid environment is the environment which is not very densely vegetated. So option A is the correct answer. So in this question, we are given a paragraph and we are also given a sentence. And what we have to choose is, there are positions in this like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you have to choose where would the sentence fit best in this paragraph. So let's read the sentence first. Understanding Central Asia's role helps development make more sense not only across Asia but also in Europe, the Americas, and the Africa. Okay, so now let's go to the paragraph. The nations of the Silk Roads are sometimes called developing countries, but they are actually some of the world's most highly developed countries, the very crossroads of civilization in advanced states of despair. So, since this is not actually related to the culture of those countries, I don't think the sentence would go over here. So let's go forward. These countries lie at the center of the global affairs. They have since the beginning of history. Running across the spine of Asia, they form a web of connections fanning out in every direction, routes along which pilgrims and warriors, nomads and merchants have traveled. Goods and produce have been bought and sold, and ideas exchanged, adapted, and refined. Again, we are starting to talk about their culture, but since this sentence is more about uh, why we should understand their culture, it won't go right after we talk what what the countries are, right, and not what their culture is like. So they carried not only prosperity but also diet. The Silk Roads are the world's central nervous system, connecting otherwise far flung people and places. So now, after this point, so now, like, this is the point. So this is the point where now it has stopped explaining about the culture and what the Silk Road countries are, right? The Central Asian countries. So now, after we stop explaining what they are, the sentence that why we should understand this can come, right? So the Silk Roads are the world's central nervous system, connecting otherwise far-flung people and places. Understanding Central Asia's role helps developments make more sense not only across Asia but also in Europe, America, and Africa. It allows us to see patterns and links, causes and effects that remain invisible if we only look at Europe and North America. And if this sentence comes at fourth place, the sentence which is coming after it also makes a lot more sense. Otherwise, the Europe and North America part seem like they came out of nowhere, right? So answer for this is option D, option fourth. Also, just one more tip, read what the options are. So over here, if you maybe the answer was option one, right? So in that case, many people would just tick A, but no, A is option three, B is option one. They are just trying to mess with us at this point, but anyways, you can't do anything about that. So read what the options are properly without choosing an answer. So even though in this case D was option four, it might not always be the case. Coming to the next paragraph, let's quickly read the paragraph and then solve the four questions that are followed after this paragraph. So oftentimes when economists cross borders, they are less interested in learning from others than in invading their garden plots. So this paragraph means that whenever this sentence means that whenever economists cross borders, so this is not literally crossing borders since they are talking about learning from others. So this means that whenever they go to a field which is not economics, So whenever economists go to maybe humanitarian studies, maybe sociology, psychology, etc., they are less interested in learning from the other field than trying to apply the economic ideas from the economics field into the other fields. So Gary Becker, for instance, pioneered the idea of human capital. To do so, he famously tackled topics like crime and domesticity, applying methods honed in the study of markets to domains of non-market life. So this guy, Gary Becker, is an example that they have given, who applied the ideas from economics to other domains which are non-economic like crime and domesticity. He projected economics outwards into new realms, for example, by relieving the extent to which humans calculate marginal utilities when choosing their spouses or stealing from their neighbors. At the same time, he did not let others' way of thinking enter his own economic realm. For example, he did not borrow from anthropology or history or let observations of non-market economics inform his Homo economicus. So, in this scenario, Homo economicus is just so, even though if you do not know what the word means, you can infer slightly that this word might mean his knowledge or his being of economics. So, his knowledge of economics. So, Becker was a picture of imperial economist in the heyday of disciplines bravura. So, bravura means so this discipline means economics. So Becker was the picture of imperial economics in the heyday of disciplines bravura. So when the economics was booming, Becker was a prime example of the imperial economist who would take his ideas to other fields and not learn from them. Times have changed for once almighty discipline. Economics have been taken to task within and beyond its ramparts. So ramparts are the walls of the castle. So this means that within and beyond its ramparts. So ramparts can also be thought of as borders. So within and beyond its borders. Some economists have reached out, imported, borrowed, and collaborated, been less imperial, more open. Consider Thomas Piketty and his outreach to historians. The blooming field of behavioral economics, the fusion of economics and social psychology, is another case. Having spawned activities subfield like judgment, decision making, and a turn to experimentation, the field aims to go beyond the caricature of rational man to explain how the humans make decisions. It is important to understand how this flips the way we think about economics. For generations, economists have presumed that people have interests, preferences in the neoclassical argot. So, neoclassical argot is like the reference to the Renaissance man. So, the ideas of the Renaissance time that get revealed in the courses of people's choices. So, overall, this sentence means that for generations, economics assumes that people have interest which can be revealed by their choices. Interests come before actions and determine them. So, economists of those generations thought that people only act based on their interests. So if you are hungry, you buy lunch. If you are cold, you get a sweater. If you only have so much money and can't afford to deal with both your groveling stomach and your shivering, which need you to choose to meet using your scarce savings, reveal your preference. So when you only have little bit of money and can either buy food or some warm clothes, and whatever you choose will reveal what your interest or what your preference is. So, according to this sentence, so psychologists take one look at this simple formulation and shake their heads. Increasingly, even some mainstream economists have to admit that Homo economicus, again the same word, doesn't always behave like the textbook maximizer. Irrational behavior can't simply be waved away as extra economic expression of passion over interest. And thus, the domain of other disciplines, this is one place where the humanist can help the economist. So this is saying that this idea is nowadays not very much accepted by the economists, and they are saying that humans don't isn't just a rational robot who would just decide his actions in a way that he maximizes his interests. He says that humanist can now help the economist understand this anomaly in his behavior. If narrative economics is going to help us understand how rivals duke it out, who wins and who loses, we are going to need much more than lessons from epidemiological studies of viruses or intracranial stimuli. Above all, we need politics and institution. Schiller, the Nobel Prize winning economist, connects perceptions of narratives to change in behavior and hence to social outcomes. He completes a circle that was key to behavioral economics and brings in storytelling to make sense of how perceptions get framed. This cycle, perception to behavior to society, was once mediated and dominated by institutions, the political parties, lobby groups, and media organizations that played a vital role in legitimating, representing, and excluding interests. Yet institutions have been stripped from Schiller's account to reveal a bare dynamic of emotions and economics without the intermediate place of politics. So, this paragraph says that Schiller uh, connects the perceptions of narratives to changes in behavior and then to social outcomes. But he does not take into account the role of institutions like the political parties and media and other organizations that also have a very vital role this, uh, in deciding how a human would act. So, coming to the question, the author critiques Hiller's approach to behavior economics for degenerating the role of institutions while creating a link between behavioral economics and perceptions, linking irrational without considering the mediation of social institution, ignoring the marginal role that politics plays, relying excessively on storytelling. So no, storytelling not at all. Ignoring the marginal role. So the media and politics do not play a marginal role, right? They play a huge role. So this option is also wrong. Between this both of them seem right, but he did not degenerate the role of institutions, right? He linked the emotions and rational behavior, but did not consider the role of social institutions. So the answer is B. Coming to the next question, times have changed for one's almighty discipline. We can infer from this statement and the associated paragraph that the author is being. So this sentence is over here. So Becker was a picture of an imperial economist in the heyday of the discipline's blue era. Times have changed for one's almighty discipline. If you look at the sentence closely, he's using words like the almighty discipline. So he's in a way mocking the economists and saying that now times have changed for the discipline that they considered at that time the best discipline of all, where you could take its ideas as well and it does not needed help from other disciplines, right? So he's in a way trying to mock the economists. So let's read the option. So is he disparaging the economics inability? No. Is he being sarcastic about how economists who earlier shunned other disciplines are now incorporating the ideas into their analysis? Yes. So for this, B is the correct option. Next question. We can infer from the passage that the term homo economicus refers to someone who. So we encountered this term twice, once over here and once over here, homo economicus. And now there's a question is who is asking refers to someone who maximizes their opportunities based on non-market choices, believes in borrowing and collaborating other disciplines. So no, not this, obviously. Makes rational decisions based on their own preferences. So in both the conditions, both the time we encountered this word, we encountered it in a scenario such that word means someone who makes rational decisions based on only their preferences, right? And then the author tried to tell that no, that is not true, and there are a lot of other factors that do affect the decisions that are made. Next question. In the first paragraph, the author is making the point that economists like Becker used economics to analyze non-market behavior without incorporating perspective from other areas and tended to guard their discipline from poaching. Benefited from applications? No, not at all. Had begun to borrow? No, they did not borrow. And they also did not guard their approach, but they did use economics to analyze other non-market behavior, but they did not learn from others. So A is the right answer. Coming to the next question, there is a sentence that is missing in the paragraph. So again, this sentence, where will it go? So the brain isn't organized the way you might set up your home office or bathroom cabinet. So the paragraph is you can't just put things anywhere you want. The evolved architecture of the brain is haphazard and disjoint. and incorporates multiple systems, each of which has a mind of its own. So, will it come at the very start? The brain isn't organized the way you might set up uh, your home office or bathroom cabinet. You can't just put things anywhere you want to. So, correct. It would come at the very first line, right? It makes perfect sense for this line to follow this sentence. You are saying that brain is not organized like your home office or bathroom cabinet, and you can't just put anything anywhere you want. So, let's just read the rest of the paragraph still, but option would be option one. So, it would be C. Evolution doesn't design things and it builds system. It settles on systems that historically conveyed a survival benefit. There is no overreaching grand planner engineering the systems so that they work harmoniously together. The brain is more like a big old house with piecemeal renovations done on every floor and less like new construction. So it is saying that brain is more like a house which has been renovated somewhere it is needed. So like if the second floor is not looking good, we renovate that and blah 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 instead of a very new constructed house designed and planned properly. Going to the next question again, paragraph is given and we have to choose which of the four options summarizes the paragraph the best. Let's read the paragraph. Scientific research shows that many animals are very intelligent and have some sensory and motor abilities that dwarf ours. Dogs are able to detect diseases such as cancer and diabetes and warn humans of impending heart attack and strokes. Elephants, whale, hippopotamus, giraffes, and alligators use low frequency sounds to communicate over long distances, often miles. Many animals also display wide ranging emotions, including joy, happiness, empathy, compassion, grief, and even resentment and embarrassment. It's not surprising that animals share many emotions with us because we also share the brain structure located in the limbic system that are the set seat of our emotions. So let's see which of these lines summarizes this the best. The advanced sensory and motor abilities of animals is the reason why they can display wide-ranging emotions. The similarity in the brain structure explains why animals show emotions typically associated with humans. So yeah, B is the answer because the paragraph talks about how animals show behavior similar to us, and it is because they have a similar brain structure. Going to the next question, five jumbled up sentences related to a topic are given below. Four of them can be put together to form a coherent paragraph. Others identify the odd one. So there are five sentences, and we can put four of them together to form a good paragraph, but one of them stands out and does not fit. So let's read the sentences. Animals have an interest in fulfilling their basic needs, but also in avoiding suffering, and thus we ought to extend moral consideration. Singer viewed himself as a utilitarian and presents a direct moral theory concerning animal rights in contrast to indirect propositions such as welfarist views. He argued for extending moral consideration to animals because, similar to humans, animals have a certain significant interests. The event that publicly announced animal rights as legitimate issue within contemporary philosophy was Peter Singer's Animal Liberation text in 1975. As such, we ought to view their interest alongside and equal to human interest, which results in humans having direct moral duties towards animals. So, even though all the sentences are related to animals and their rights, if you look at the sentences 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe we can even put them in the order as 4 coming first. So, talking about an act, then about Singer, how he put forward his views, and then 3 and 5 about what he believed. Even the first sentence is also about animals and why they have an interest in avoiding suffering. But all the other four sentences are about a specific act about Peter Singer and his views on animals and their rights. The first sentence is more directly about the animals, right? It is not related to Singer and his act. So even though all of them are related to the same topic and it is a very confusing question, and one is the answer since that is also about animals but not directly related to Singer. So in this type of questions, what you can do is even though a lot of times all the sentences would seem very similar and no sentence would directly pop out as a odd one out, but you can try to see what the subject of all the sentences are, right? Or what they are trying to propose. So all the sentences are trying to convey something about singer's view on animal rights. But the first sentence is also doing that, but not through singer. It's just a sentence that is talking in general about why animals should also have moral consideration. Moving to the next question. The passage given below is followed by four alternative summaries. Again, a passage, and we have to choose which of the four options best summarizes this paragraph. Certain codes may, of course, be widely distributed in a specific language community or culture and be learned at so early an age that they appear not to be constructed. The effect of an articulation between sign and referent, but to be naturally given. Simple visual signs appear to have achieved a near universality. In this sense, though evidence remains that even apparently natural visual codes are cultural specific. However, this does not mean that no codes have intervened, rather, that codes have been profoundly naturalized. The operation of naturalized codes reveals not the transparency and naturalness of language, but the depth, the habituation, and the near universality of the codes in use. They produce apparently natural recognitions. This has the ideological effect of concealing the practices of coding which are present. So this paragraph talks about how language has codes and which like nodding your head and waving your hand to say goodbye, etc., which are very specific to cultures, but we learn that at such an early age that we think that they are natural and not constructed by humans. So the first option is all codes, linguistic and visual, have natural origin, but so no, all of them do not have a natural origin. This is like the very first sentence of the paragraph. Not all codes are natural, but certain codes are naturalized and made to appear universal. Ideology aims to hide the mechanism of coding behind the scenes. Language and visual signs are codes. However, some of codes are so widespread that not only seem natural but also hide the mechanism of coding behind the signs. So ideology aims to hide the mechanism, so there is no talk about this, right? Ideology is just effect of the concealing. Not it does not aim to hide them. So again, option C. That language and visual signs are codes, and some of the codes are so widespread that they seem natural but they are not, and also hide the mechanism of how they got coded. So like nowadays you can't really tell how it started, like how waving your hand started to mean goodbye. The passage below, again, a passage and then four questions. Let's quickly go through the passage this time. In the summer of 2022, subscribers to the US streaming service HBO Max were alarmed to discover that dozens of platforms offering from COVID themed heist thriller Lockdown to the recent remakes of The Witches have been quietly removed from the service. The news seemed like vindication to those who had long warned that streaming was more about controlling access to the cultural commons than expanding it. So vindication is like providing proof. So since some subscribers discovered that even though they were subscribed to the streaming service HBO Max, they did not get access to some of the content like COVID themed heist thriller Lockdown was removed. So it was like a proof to people who before used to say that streaming services are more about controlling the access to what the culture is rather than expanding it. As did reports, since denied by the show's creators, that Netflix has begun editing old episodes of Stranger Things to retroactively improve their visual effects. So, this was also an example of why streaming services seem like they are controlling the media, like Netflix trying to edit the old episodes of Stranger Things to make them look better. But this claim was denied by the creators themselves. So Netflix denied this claim, but who knows what is true. What's less clear is whether the commonly prescribed cure for these cultural ills, a return to the material pleasures of physical media, is the right one. Whether the makers of Blu-ray claim to have a shelf life of 100 years, such statistics remain largely theoretical until they come to pass and are dependent on storage conditions, not to mention that continued availability of playback equipment. The humble DVD has already proved far less resilient, with many early releases already beginning to deteriorate in quality. Digital movie purchases provide even less security. Any film brought on iTunes could disappear if you move to another territory with a different rights agreement and try to re download it. It's a bold new frontier in the commodification of art, the birth of the product recall. After a man took to Twitter to Behemon means uh, to try to shame them, to try to present his upsetness that he was very sad about losing the access to Cars 2 after moving from Canada to Australia. Apple clarified that users who downloaded films to their devices would retain permanent access to the downloads even if they relocated to a new hemisphere. The content was subject to a different set of rights agreements. Thanks to the company's ironclad digital rights management technology, however, such files cannot be moved or backed up, locking you into watching with your Apple account. So even though Apple said that if you downloaded the movie first, you would retain the right to access that movie even after moving to some place with different set of rights. But since you cannot move the file away from the downloads or you cannot back that up, it locks you into having access to that piece of content only if you have access to your Apple account. Anyone who does manage to acquire digital rights management free, DRM free copies of their favorite films must nonetheless grapple with ever changing film format standards, not to mention data decay, the gradual process by which electronic media slowly but surely corrupts. Only the regular migration of files from hard disk to hard disk can delay the inevitable in a Sisyphean battle against the ravages of digital time. So Sisyphean is a adjective that we use to describe something that is never ending. There is a old tale of Sisyphus in Greek mythology, I think, where a person is moving a boulder up to a hill again and again, and the boulder falls down again, and he have to move it again all eternity. So something that does not end. In a sense, none of this is new. Charlie Chaplin burned the negatives of his 1926 film A Woman of the Sea as a tax write-off. Many more films have been lost to through accident, negligence, or plain indifference. During a heat wave in 1937, a Fox film vault in New Jersey burned down, destroying a majority of the silent films produced by that studio. Back then, at least, cinema was defined by its ephemerality. So, ephemerality is something that is very temporary. The sense that a film was as good as gone once it's left your local cinema. Today, with film studios keen to stress the breadth of their back catalogs, or to put in Hollywood terms, the value of their IPs, audiences may start to wonder why those same studios seem happy to set the vault alight themselves if it will help the next quarter's numbers. Let's come to the questions quickly. Question number 14. Which one of the following statements, if true, would best invalidate the main argument of the passage? So there are four statements, and we have to find out which of them, if it was true, would then invalidate the argument of this whole passage. So studios and streaming services have committed to giving customers perpetual and platform independent access to original digital. Okay, yeah, this is the answer. They have not. The whole passage is about that studios and streaming services do not give proper access. Netflix has begun editing old episodes of Stranger Things to retroactively improve their visual effects. What is the purpose of this example? To show that streaming services are controlling access to cultural commons rather than expanding it, to show a practice that justifies the fears of people who feel services cannot be trusted. So now, even though this is also correct, this sentence shows that streaming services are controlling access to cultural commons rather than expanding it. If we see that this sentence actually came over here in the paragraph over here. So what was it actually talking about? It was talking about when how it vindicates the belief of people that they should not trust streaming services with the cultural artifact. So this is most probably the answer. Let's still read what the option B and C are. So to show how unsustainable reports are leading to an increased level of distrust, to show the art in digital age, specifically film, is no longer sacrosanct and may be changed to suit changing taste of changing tastes or technology. So yeah, C is the answer. Yeah, some sacrosanct means something that is too important or valuable to be changed. So they are not. So the sentence means that they are not sacrosanct. They are not too valuable to be changed, and they are changing it to change the to suit the tastes of the changing technology. So yeah, B is the answer. Coming to the next question. Which of the following statements about art best captures the arguments made in the passage? As art is increasingly created, sorted, and distributed digitally, its access to it is counterintuitively likely to be made more difficult by the rapid churn in technology and the whims of host platforms. In the age of online subscription services, it is time to change our understanding of classical arts being per primary immutable and easily accessible for the public. Accepting retroactive changes to the work of art is dangerous because it will encourage creators not to put enough effort. So, no, this is not true. Work of art being belong to the cultural commons and hence must remain unavailable in perpetuity, irrespective of who pays for access to them. So, this is also true, but the whole passage was mostly about how art is, as art is being created more and more and distributed digitally, the access to it is more difficult. So, A is the answer. Coming to the next question. Which of the following statements is suggested by the sentence, back then at least cinema was designed by its ephemerality, the sense that a film was as good as gone once it left the local cinema? So which of the following statements is suggested? So this sentence, what does it suggest? So presently there is no reason why film studios should remove access it have once the film has left the local cinema. Around a century ago, people were more accepting of not having access to films once they left the local cinema. Cinema is no longer as ephemeral as it used to be because the technology used for creating and preserving film has improved manifold. Today, films are expected to be available for a long time since they are no longer tied solely to their local cinema. So D is the answer. Why? Because this sentence, back then, at least. So it is saying that at least in the old days, cinema was defined by its ephemerality because once the film left your local cinema, there was no good way to access the film again. But it is saying that it was at least the case back then. So it means that at least today, films are expected to be available for a longer time because they are not tied to the local cinema. They can be accessed in a lot more ways, like the streaming services and all. So again, there is a passage and four question. Let's get to it. The idea of craftsmanship is not simply nostalgic. Craft requires distinct skills and all around approach to work that involves the whole product rather than the individual parts, and an attitude that necessitates devotion to the job and a focus on the communal interests. The concept of craft emphasizes the human touch and individual judgment. Essentially, the crafts concept seem to run against the ponderant ethos of management studies, which, as the academics note, have long prioritized efficiency and consistency. Craft skills were portrayed as being primitive and traditionalist. The contrast between artisanship and efficiency first came to the fore in the 19th century when British manufacturers suddenly faced competition from across the Atlantic as firms developed the American system using standardized parts. The worldwide success of the Singer swing machine showed the potential of mass produced devices. This process created its own reaction, first in the form of arts and crafts movement of the late 19th century, and then again in the smallest beautiful movement of the 1970s. A third crafts movement is emerging as people become aware of the environmental impact of the conventional industry. There are two potential markets for those who practice crafts. The first stems from the existence of customers who are willing to pay a premium price for goods that are deemed to be of extra quality. So for now, the market for the arts and crafts is composed of two type of people. First, it is there because of people who are paying to pay a little extra for the quality of goods they think that are better quality, that are handcrafted and all. The second market lies in the those consumers who wish to use who wish to use their purchases to support the local workers or to reduce their environmental impact by taking goods to craftspeople to be mended or recycled. And the second type of people are those people who wish to support the local workers or they reduce their environmental impact, since the locally purchased good can be brought back to those people to be mended or recycled. For workers, the appeal of craftsmanship is that it allows them the autonomy to make creative choices and thus makes a job far more satisfying. In that sense, it could offer hope for overall labor market. Let the machines automate dull and repetitive tasks and let the workers focus purely on their skill, judgment, and imagination. As a current example, the academic cite the Agile Manifesto in the software sector as an industry at the heart of technological change. The pioneers behind the original Agile Manifesto promised to prioritize individuals and interactions over processes and tools. By bringing together experts from different teams, Agile working designed to improve creativity. But the broader question is whether crafts can create a lot more jobs than they do today. Demand for crafted products may rise, but will it be easy to retain workers in sectors that might get automated, such as truck drivers, to take the advantage? In a world where products and services often have to pass through regulatory hoops, large companies will usually have the advantage. History also suggests that the link between crafts and creativity is not automatic. Medieval craft guilds were monopolies which resisted new entrants. They were also highly hierarchical, with young men required to spend long periods as apprentices and journeymen before they could set up on their own. By that time, the innovative spirit may have been knocked out of them. Craft workers can thrive in the modern era, but only if they don't get too organized. Question is, we can infer from the passage that medieval craft skills resembled mass productions in that they both discouraged innovation by resisting entry, did not always employ egalitarian production processes, did not necessarily promote creativity, and focused excessively on product quality. So there is no mention of quality or the production process. So we may rule out option B and D. Between option A and between option C, even though they did discourage innovation by restricting the entry, there was also a lot more going on, right? Like people who did enter, they also had to work as apprehensives for a long periods of time, right? So this is a lot more general question answer, and this is so that's why C is the correct answer. They did not necessarily promote creativity, even though they did also do what A is suggesting, but that is not all, right? Between two options, the one which captures more will be the correct option. Question 19. Which of the following statements is not inconsistent with the views? So, of all these questions, all of them are inconsistent with what was shown in the passage, but one of them is not, and we have to identify that. We need to support the crafts, only then we can retain creative instinct. So, this is true. The arts and craft movements were initially inspired by American system of production. So, yeah, true creativity in crafts could be stifled if the market for arts becomes too organized. The agile movement in software is a throwback to the tenets of medieval crafts guilds. So this is also inconsistent, right? The agile movement is not a throwback because agile movement is trying to make is trying to focus more on people than tools and processes. So no, D is not the answer. The arts and craft movements was not inspired by the American system of singer, and we need to support arts and crafts. So this is also a bit inconsistent since this is not what the passage was trying to say, right? Only then we can retain creativity instinct, because this is like just saying that we have to support crafts, otherwise we will not be able to retain creativity. So this is too much assertive, which was not there in the paragraph. So option C is the correct option. Creativity in the crafts could be stifled if the market for artsy and goods gets too organized, because we just saw this in the last sentence. If they do not get too organized, the market can be there, but and it is also saying that, right, that there could be stiff if they get too organized. So C is the correct answer. The author questions the ability of crafts to create substantial. Why is the author questioning the ability of crafts to create a lot of employment? Because of its low scale, the low scale of crafts production will not be able to absorb the mass of redundant labor. Because the regulatory requirements make it difficult for small craft outfits to compete, and workers made redundant by automation are unlikely. So we do not see any direct reference to this, so we can cross this out. Craft guilds are old, so we can cross this out as well. So between these two, we can see that second one is directly mentioned in the paragraph, right? Because of regulatory requirements, small people are not able to compete, and larger, more bigger companies will have the advantage. So that's why option B is the answer over here. Question 21. The most relevant revival in the interest in the crafts is the result of the emergence of the following except. So all of these are truths. Or because of all these things, the new interest in the arts is rising, but one of them is false. So concern about environmental impact, this is true. A niche market for discerning buyers of quality products, a support for individual creation as opposed to mass production, a greater interest in buying. So this is also true. And this is also true, but support for individual creations. So people are not directly supporting individual creators. There can be a group of creators also who can be making artsy stuff. So this is not a direct reason, right? So the correct answer is option C. Again, we have a sentence and there are four options, and we have to see where the sentence would go. I guess there's a printing mistake here. Options 3 would be over here. Option 3. So let's read the sentence. Comprehending a wide range of emotions, Renaissance music nevertheless portrayed all emotions in a balanced and moderate fashion. So the paragraph is a volume of translated Italian madrigals. So madrigals is like Italian, old Italian music. Were published in London during the year of 1588. The sudden public interest facilitated a surge of English madrigal writing as well as sprout of other secular music writing and publications. So after this, we are not directly talking about Renaissance music and its emotions, right? So it won't go over here. The music bloom lasted for 30 years, so it won't. 30 years, and was as much a golden age of British literature of music as British literature was with the Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I. So again, not really coming close to topic talking about how emotions would go into Renaissance. So no, not over here as well. The rebirth in both literature and music organized in Italy and migrated to England. The England madrigal became more humorous and lighter in England as compared to Italy. Renaissance music was mostly polyphonic in texture. So, okay, now we are talking about Renaissance music and how it was polyphonic in texture. So, now let's try to fit this sentence over here. So, Renaissance music was polyphonic in texture, comprehending a wide range of emotions. Renaissance music nevertheless portrayed all emotions in balanced manner. So, yeah, it fits perfectly. So, the answer is this position. Extreme contrast in dynamic rhythms and tone do not occur. So again, you can see this sentence over here perfectly goes after this sentence, right? So comprehending a wide range of emotions, Renaissance music nevertheless portrayed emotions all in a balanced fashion, and extreme contrast were not there. Then the rhythms in the Renaissance music tend to have a smooth flow instead of a sharp, well-defined pulse of accents. So this is the position, but option B is the right answer because option C is B. I don't know what is with them by not just having A as option 1, B as option 2, C as option 3, but okay, yeah, this is the correct answer. B, option C. So this is the passage, and this has again four summaries, and you have to see which of them summarizes the passage best. Let's quickly read the passage. Cartographers designed and create maps in to communicate information about phenomena located somewhere on our planet. In the past, cartographers did not worry too much about who was going to read their maps. Although some simple usability research was done, like comparing whether circle or bar symbols work best, cartographers knew how to make maps. This has changed now, however, due to all kinds of societal and technological developments. Today, map readers are more demanding mostly because of the tools they use to read maps. Cartographers who are also influenced by these trends are now more interested in seeing if their products are efficient, effective, and appreciated. So, this paragraph is mostly about cartographers, people who make maps, and how in the old days they used to just make the maps and they did knew how to make them. But nowadays they also have to research a lot more on how efficient they are, how much is the usability of those maps so that people can easily understand their maps. So, new technology developments have promoted cartographers to experiment with their maps by applying new innovations. So, no, they are not experimenting actually. Today, cartographers also need to look into usability of the maps because of the technological developments. Maps are being used for variety of reasons, and therefore map readers have become more demanding. So, yeah, no, this is true, but this is not the whole gist of the paragraph. Modern map makers evaluate maps effectiveness, satisfaction for the user through a series of experiments. So, yeah, they do evaluate the effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. It is given over right here, but they not through some experiments. Maybe, but that is not given in the paragraph, so best to go with option B. Today, cartographers also need to look into the usability because of new technological developments. Now the needs have changed. Last question, five jumbled up sentences labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we have five sentences and four of them make a coherent paragraph. One of them is the odd one out. Let's read them and see which one it is. Urbanities also have more and better options for getting around. Uber is ubiquitous, easy to rent, dockless bicycles are spreading, battery powered scooters will be next. So, okay, this sentence is about how urban people have a lot of options to get around. When more people use buses or trains, the service usually improves because public transport agencies run more buses. Okay, so the first sentence was about how public transport is getting less of the thing of urban people, right? They are using other things like Uber and dockless bicycles, and this is about how public transport is good. So maybe one of the options, either this or either this, will be odd one out, depending on what the other options are. Worsening services on public transport, terrorist attack in urban area has been blamed for this trend. So again, because of this, so this is about how public transport is getting less frequent, right? So this is also, so it's more likely that public transport is being squeezed structurally as people's need to travel is diminishing because of smartphones, video conference, online shopping, and so on. So yeah, we can read all of this, but we got a gist that all of them are about how public transport is going down, and this one is about how public transport goes up when people use more buses, and also this is the odd one out. So, as you can see, we not only solved the paper, but you can also get a gist of how you should be thinking while going through these questions, what clues you should be looking to, and sometimes you don't have to read all the options, but it is always best to do if you have time left. But in cases like this, you can, when we are seeing which is the odd one out or something, you can just try to see what topic the sentence is talking about, and if one of them is a little bit different from the others. So, yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you are also preparing for the coming up CAT exams so you don't miss up on any updates. And thanks for watching.